Everyone in.
Now you're welcome back. They've just kicked off at Goodison, Everton against Manchester United in the Carabao Cup quarter-final. I will shout if there are any goals. In fact, there could be one early doors. No. Bad touch, Bruno Fernandes. Almost a chance for United. 3 minutes gone there at Goodison. But it is time for Wednesday Night Rugby. Ronan O'Gara, hello.
Joe, how are you? Great to see you.
Is that a Christmas jumper I detect there?
Yes. Can you see it?
I can see enough.
I was kind of half told.
Oh, very nice, very nice, very nice. JP told you, did he?
Yes, exactly. JP is quite strict, I find. I'm but afraid of JP.
Well, listen, you haven't seen the half of it. You don't know. So Christmas in La Rochelle, that's the plan, I presume?
Yeah. Christmas in La Rochelle. My mum and dad are here, so it's great. I haven't seen them in over a year, so they're here. And
wow. Amazing.
Hopefully, a few of my rugby buddies from Racing will get down to me as well, hopefully tomorrow. So should be a good Christmas, yeah. We play Montpellier on Sunday, so
right.
Christmas in France, but it's rugby season. It's strange time, strange year, so it's feels like it's going to be a strange Christmas, so let's get it over with and get on with it.
It does. Well, look, you're doing well. I didn't realise the folks had flown out, so that changes the complexion of things completely. And you hadn't seen them in a year. Wow.
Yeah, it's great. Absolutely. As you know, I've a fair few kids, so the grandparents are always a novelty for a day or two. So, it is great. It's great, Joe. It's as you get a little bit on in life, you appreciate these things. So we're going to have a good time.
Great. Okay. Well, listen, best wishes with that and enjoy it. The Rainbow Cup.
And you have an enjoyable Christmas ahead of you.
I do, yeah. I mean, I see the parents a little bit and do a few bits. It's different, you know. And I think there's a little bit of heaviness in the air, I think, with the lockdown measures announced yesterday and talk of a new, more contagious strain and all this stuff. So it's not kind of the Christmas we all felt we were in for a couple of weeks ago, but, you know, such is life.
Yeah.
The Rainbow
Bring
Cup.
on summer.
Well, exactly. Sorry, there's a delay on the line. I'm going to keep interrupting you accidentally, but we'll do our best here. So the Rainbow Cup, this will start, if people haven't heard the news, and this has been much talked about for a long time, this will start on the 17th of April next year, and the final will be on June 19th. Games will be held in Europe and in South Africa. They're going to wrap the Pro 14 up on the 27th of March. Conference A will play Conference B in a final, home advantage to the team with the most points. And then the Rainbow Cup with 16 teams goes from April to June. Format is very simple, 2 pools of 8, and then the final will be the winners of the 2 pools. So in each pool of 8, you'll have 2 Irish provinces, 2 South African teams, 2 Welsh regions, a Scottish team and an Italian team. The Lions, the Stormers, the Sharks and the Bulls. I don't watch much of South African rugby or Super Rugby, not as much as I should. It's hard to watch everything. How do the Lions, the Stormers, the Sharks and the Bulls compare in talent, in strength to a Leinster or a Munster, for instance?
Yeah, they would be very strong. It's big news for rugby. It's massive news, I think, for this competition, because it's 4 really high quality teams. Obviously, if they pick their Super Rugby players, which I presume they have to pick, it makes it very interesting, and it makes games, well, especially down there, because it's Super Rugby. It'll be faster pitches, better probably weather conditions on a great surface, so high scoring games, and it makes for probably a far more entertaining game. It'll be, I suppose, how the Irish provinces will fare if they go down there for a 3-week tour. So that'll be the challenge ahead of them.
So if rightly or wrongly, I currently have the Pro 14 as Leinster and then a bit of a gap to the rest. Do these 4 South African sides go right in alongside Leinster, just behind them?
Oh no, I don't think anyone goes right in beside Leinster the way Leinster are playing. I mean, Leinster and Munster are proven top quality sides. I suppose there would be a little bit of where exactly are these 4 South African teams, but like the Lions in Super Rugby, the Bulls in Super Rugby, the Stormers in Super Rugby, and the 4th team is the Sharks are serious teams, Joe. So they challenge the Crusaders, they challenge the Chiefs, they challenge, and they win games, and they win a lot of games. So it's a massive, I suppose, quality energy boost to this competition.
It needed it, didn't it? Because realistically, this tournament was dying on its knees, I felt. It was inessential viewing every week. Leinster were just streets ahead. They didn't have to play their best team. They didn't have to play their second best team, and they were probably winning most games. And, you know, bar the knockout stages or the final, yeah, like I don't think a lot of people were watching this tournament very much anymore.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it was Leinster's second team, or second and third team, or sorry, players of their squad, because in fairness to them, they have such good quality that it'd be unfair to call them second base tier players. But they were, any time I tuned in, you know what I mean, they were scoring, averaging 50 points per game. And it's very difficult to probably learn, because you obviously do learn more from your defeats, but you learn very little from games where you're not pushed, or where I suppose where there's a change of lead or in a game. So it was essentially probably their sparring day, or their A versus B day in training would have been far more competitive or challenging for those players than it was coming up against, for example, you know, in 2/3 of the games they had in the RDS for certain anyway.
Yes, because even, you know, when Ross Byrne was recently playing for Ireland, you were hearing phrases after those Ireland games to the effect that, well, look, in fairness, Ross Byrne isn't used to playing behind a scrum that isn't going well, or behind slow ball. And actually, that's no good for his development. He needs to do a bit of both.
Yeah, of course he does. Yeah, you're right. But it's not the player's fault either. It's just, as you say, I think, you know, it's only when you probably leave Ireland you appreciate how well the players are looked after, and the fact that they play really, really big test matches, and they usually get on a run that involves 6 to 9 games in Europe. So on that stage you're hitting, you know what I mean, 22 to 25 games a year. But I think if you can add potentially 5, 6 or 7 where that your players are playing in a competition that is really, I suppose, appreciated and valued, it will make it, I think everyone wins. Under the old format, it was stale, it was lacking inspiration, it was lacking, I suppose, as you say, people couldn't really believe or felt it was a little bit, or not a little bit, well off, worth going after. And that's not a cup or a competition you want to win. And obviously people who win it will disagree, but I think the majority of people who don't have an agenda or don't have links to the competition feel that it isn't a league like the Premiership or like a top 14, because there's no relegation in it. So it serves the development of younger players well, but as then the flip side of it is when you need, you know, when you're winning over 90% of your games every season, you wonder how much more learning can be squeezed out of a more competitive league. And I would say with the addition of the 4 South African teams, this will greatly help the competitiveness of this league.
And if I had to ask you to speculate a bit then, does this pave the way for South African teams in the Heineken Champions Cup, for South Africa in the Six Nations? Is that where all this is going, do you suspect, ultimately?
It has to. Well, I presume it has to for most definitely Europe and the Champions Cup. It's you know, if you're performing well in this competition, which is the criteria for qualifying for the Champions Cup or the Challenge Cup, that's step one. I think what you'll also find is that there will probably be potential announcement of a global competition of the superpowers of the game, of the clubs. That will obviously be challenged, I presume, by a lot of the federations, because the test game is seen as more important. But I think there's still an appetite for the best of the Northern Hemisphere teams against the best of the Southern Hemisphere teams on a kind of a super shootout weekend. That for those of us that remembered, I think the English rugby league teams tried it, whether I think they went to Man City or Old Trafford to play. You know, what I mean, I think four games between midday and 6 p.m. on a Sunday, with delayed kickoff time. You know, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and you'd 4 teams playing 4 teams, obviously. So you had 8 teams in the one weekend, a super Sunday, I think it was. So I think there's a huge potential in that regard, Joe. But I think what is very pleasing for people that are supporters of the Celtic nations, that it gives it a massive room from quality.
And how will the Southern Hemisphere be feeling about all this? New Zealand and Australia, are they happy enough to lose those long treks over to South Africa, or will it be sorely missed?
No, I think you saw with the Aotearoa competition this year, I think that just really gave the New Zealand domestic game a massive shot in the arm. I don't think anyone would have contemplated having the success story that turned out to be, and it is really rekindled, I suppose, the love for Super Rugby, because when I was coaching when the Crusaders, it took me so long to get my head around the fact that obviously it's an old stadium, because the other one was unfortunately destroyed by the earthquake, but the older ground, it's not conducive to a cold night, and it's very difficult for fans to go there, and in that regard, that you couldn't get over the fact that, if the Crusaders were playing, I'd say, in any city, in Europe or even in America, or there would be minimum 40,000 people going there to watch them. So I think that proved with their domestic competition that there's a big appetite for that. You looked at the sales for in Auckland, I'm having a blank on in New Zealand played their home games in
Auckland, Christchurch, Wellington?
No, Auckland. What's the name of the stadium? Sorry.
I'll check for you here.
No, oh my God, can't believe I don't remember that. Eden Park,
going,
sorry, in Eden Park.
Oh,
Eden Park,
course, yeah.
Exactly, sorry. So
you're freaking me out there. I'm thinking, what is it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
It's only one of the most famous stadiums in the world, Rog.
Yeah, I know, that's ridiculous.
On you go. Have you ever played there? Probably about 10 times.
Yeah.
Come here,
that opens another discussion. Do I remember playing there?
Is Mother O'Gara serving you sherry early this evening? What's going on here?
No. I'm upstairs, so I've moved my location, so I'm a little bit distracted.
So where we were, I was asking you, New Zealand will be happy enough.
Eden Park on three times.
Yeah.
So they're getting the crowds there, and you can see it works between Australia and New Zealand, and it works for test level, and that's a massive, I suppose, influencing factor at the minute, because it's about getting finances regulated for the next 12 months.
Okay, so they might be happy enough. There's obviously fixture carnage at the moment in the European game, and there's not much anyone can do about it. You know all about that. Given the game against Bath was cancelled, we've seen it with Lyon, we've seen it with Toulouse. The Toulon Scarlets thing was very messy, and now it seems Premiership Stephen's Day games are going by the wayside. Bath against London Irish is gone. Newcastle against Leicester gone as well. So you obviously got word that Bath couldn't fulfil the fixture. You got the 28-0 point win, and you beat Edinburgh away. So that leaves La Rochelle sitting okay in Pool A in Leinster's group. You're on 9 points. You're in 4th spot. So that's a very nice start to the European campaign for you guys.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's more than a nice start. It's halfway. So,
is the 28-0 rule good in your opinion? Is it fair?
Absolutely fantastic, brilliant.
Yeah.
If you give me an open goal, Joe, I have to take it. It's difficult. It's very, very harsh on so many teams. But the flip side of this is that these rules were explained to all the European clubs before the competition starts, and we're aware of the consequences. So that's what it is. It's something that we can't control, and you're just hoping that on that European weekend or the Thursday before that, it isn't your club that's in that situation, because if it is, it could absolutely derail your whole challenge. But if that is the case, it's something that as we all know, you can control the controllables. COVID is not controllable,
No.
so we do the best we can on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, you really hope for the tournament's sake we're not going to see a knockout game decided this way or something decisive towards the end of the pool campaign. But as you said, it's not controllable. Why, by the way, do you suspect, as a coach in this tournament, why are we seeing so many tries and such exciting games in the Champions Cup as opposed to what we saw in the Autumn Nations Cup, the test matches over the autumn, which were fairly dull, low on try affairs? Why this explosion of attacking rugby, do you think, in European club rugby?
I don't think that's necessarily the case, Joe. I think you look at, Bristol, Clermont, it was over 80 points in December, which was, I found really hard to get my head around it. But then you look at the way Bristol defended on that day, and they would be particularly disappointed with how that game panned out. Then Clermont putting, Munster to bed, they thought, in the first 25 minutes, bonus point game. Victory achieved, they would have thought, and then Munster stuck at it and they came back at him. I think what a lot of teams in France, I suppose, underappreciate is that the Irish, the Welsh and the Scottish teams, there's absolutely no way that they won't relinquish at all for an 80-minute period. So they will absolutely empty the tank and give it everything. For French teams, if they don't fancy it or don't feel it, there is a potential opt-out of that because of, I suppose, the safety net, which is a weak excuse of a top 14. But the Welsh and the Scottish and the Irish, this is their competition and this is what they go after, and it's very, very important. But I think the difference is, Joe, as we know, and people underappreciate it, Test rugby is a complete different game. You look at, so there's, as I've explained to the listeners many a time, there's 14 clubs in the top 14 of 40 players, so they all play club rugby every week, yet 5% of that are lucky enough to represent France, far less than that, and they play a test game where there's less time on the ball and there's less space, and it's far more difficult to find time and space to execute. So people who compare the Champions Cup to Test rugby, it's not I would say an accurate barometer of where the game is, and especially I think that Autumn Cup, it was a little bit we could talk a long time about, because a lot of the clubs were in different positions. France, for the fact that they had a pool of players of over 70, and the kind of regulars played the first 3 games of the 6-game block, and the kind of so-called second team came in to go to Twickenham to play, and they weren't given a chance, and yet they were denied in the last minute a spectacular victory against them. But they'll have changed. Wales were down in confidence. There was turmoil in their coaching staff, and they were lacking form. Ireland weren't performing, I would say, to where they liked, contrary to what they said publicly. But so the teams were at a complete different stages. So it was a little bit of there was so many, I suppose, different questions, or the form lines were very, very hard to predict.
You're playing Montpellier on Sunday, you said. Top 14 table still looks very good. 11 games in, La Rochelle are top of the table. Toulouse, Racine, Clermont, all behind you. How is this being talked about then over in France? Is this a big surprise, budget, talent-wise? Are you shocking everyone to be where you are, or would you have these expectations of the team? Well, I know you might, but would others have expectations of La Rochelle to be up around this neck of the woods, top of the table territory?
No, but also there's an asterisk around it too, Joe, because we all haven't played the same amount of games. Racing are a game less, and they're only 3 points down, so they get a bonus point when they're 2 points ahead. So there's an awful lot of what, as you know from spending time with me and discussing rugby, is that we have to be, and we need to be in the top 6, and that's something that you have to admit. And once you admit it, you make a plan to go after it, and then once you make the plan, you stick to the plan, you adapt your plan, and you try and get better week on week. But it's not in any way a pressurized or a high pressurized position to be in. This is very normal for a lot of players, and especially a lot of the staff, because can't stress enough, even with the year that we had, how enjoyable it is coaching or doing something that you love, and that's what I like doing.
Especially when it's going well, I'm sure. And are you happy? I mean, are you meeting the expectations?
Especially when you're going well, yes and no, because it's incredibly frustrating at times too, Joe. But you have to have a consistent level of, I suppose, personality, or consistent level of behaviours towards your players and towards your staff. And that's, I think, once they kind of detect that your body language is approachable, then you can grow players. If they feel that this guy, touchy today, I wouldn't go near him, then you're not sending off the right signals. So before I open my mouth at the top of the room most mornings, guys and girls in the environment will know what kind of
mood you're in,
what kind of mood I'm in.
Yeah. So, like, would you wear a Christmas jumper in and stuff?
I did. I wore this jumper, for Christmas lunch.
Something I want to ask you about. I know your headphones falling out there, so shout if you can't hear me. Something I want to ask you about. There's been, a huge amount of talk about the class action and the dementia and the awful, awful situation that players of your vintage even find themselves in. It's just shocking and so sad when you listen to Alex Popham interviewed, or Steve Thompson, or any of the others. There are two areas where the game will have to look to make things safer. So the tackles, certainly, and they've worked on that. But I wanted to ask you about ruck time, not least on the back of the Tom Wood, Josh van der Fleer moment, which has come up for a lot of talk. And Tom Wood's been cited and now given a 3-week ban, actually. These clear-outs, these torpedo shots, big men flying in at pace, heads in the vicinity of where they're flying into. It's never looked good, I've always thought. And now, not least on the back of this class action, it just feels like it's something rugby's really going to have to get on top of very, very quickly. In your view, is there any rule change or rule interpretation to make the ruck safer overnight from a knocks to the head point of view?
Yeah, there's a lot in that question, John. I think I haven't listened to the podcast or to the deliberations of the ex-players, because it is extremely sad, but I can, I suppose, resonate with so much of it. Yet, for me, there was plenty of times that I got, knocked out and concussed, but hopefully I don't have any long-term ill effects from it. So I have extremely positive memories from my time playing the game. But the ruck is complicated, and even avoiding injury around the ruck it's an area that is constantly discussed, I think, by coaches and by players on a daily basis, because what you're always trying to work on in training is working on technique, because you can't go full metal jackal in training, because it's just going to lead to injuries, and especially with the force of some of the players playing nowadays, it would be an absolute recipe for disaster and calamitous injuries. I think where the game needs to improve would be, the younger you learn a skill, the more people benefit. So the earlier the age you're told about head placement in the tackle, or head position around the ruck, or how you tuck your chin, little things like that make big differences. But I think what is different from people potentially in the media and people in coaching is that the laws of the game are in black and white. So any shot to the head equals red. So there's either a misunderstanding, which is a lame excuse, or a neglect towards the understanding of the laws of the game about headshots. People are, even, you look at the Montpellier Wasps game, for example, it was an unfortunate incident, you could say, but a number 9 ducking to avoid a tackle, and if there is accidental collision with the head, it's still a red card. At the weekend, Joss Flander-Fleer is there, and you could see Tom Wood, from my understanding from a player's point of view and how I read the incident, was if Tom Wood wanted to do Van der Fleer in that situation, he most definitely could. I think he tried to clean him out, but he didn't get his action correct. Shot to the head, red card. It has to be that brutal for a period of time till people understand that anything involving the head, it's outlawed in the game, and it has been for I would say a number of years now.
Yes.
But unfortunately, referees are human too, and we're all suffering from inconsistencies of understanding that there may be what's the word I'm looking for, Joe? When the referees ask the TMO about, are there any
mitigating circumstances?
Correct.
Yeah.
Mitigating factors do not come into it.
Yeah. And you know, sorry, so you may not remember this incident. Remember in the Ireland-Scotland match a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was Stuart Hogg, and he was cleaned out. The lads had about there was 2 of them went through him, about 15-metre run at him, and it was legal, but just those torpedo shots around ruck time increasingly feel off. Is there is making any contact with the head an instant red card? Will that slow lads down going in because they have to be more careful, or is there gonna have to be some kind of change around it?
There's also a little bit of probably, you know what I mean, in terms of the defender putting his position in a potential poach position, i.e. for people watching at home in a vulnerable position, that may not be the smartest decision of his or her in a game. Hence, if you put that yourself in that position, there may be consequences. If you're looking to slow down ball and be a menace at every breakdown, there will be consequences to that. So you basically have to be extremely smart in terms of your decision making about the risk and reward between slowing down and actually, well, I could get broken ribs at this breakdown.
But players will do that. Players will put themselves in harm's way for the team, won't they? Realistically.
I think, well, if you were to look at probably data from the time I played the game when it's playing now, I would say it was far more. Well, obviously they're completely different rules either, because stamping was allowed, rucking was allowed. So that's probably not the best of arguments, but you have to. It comes down. An awful lot of it comes down to skill as well, Joe. I wouldn't underestimate decision making, yes, but also your skill and capacity around poaching balls.
And are you confident that the game will be able to tidy this up over the next year, 18 months?
Yeah, I think the game has faced for a long period of time now many challenges, but I think when it's played extremely well and it's a game that is very, very safe. There's always going to be massive collisions. We're playing rugby, Joe.
Yeah.
That's
the nature of the beast.
Absolutely. I cannot stress though. There's so much education involved in learning how to fall, learning where to place your head, and sometimes learning not where to place your head.
And do you routinely see professional players making mistakes on those basics?
You do, but it's obviously then I have a massive role along with members of the staff to educate players and to highlight the potential consequences of what could go wrong here.
Yes.
So there's a massive role in mentoring, in educating, and then obviously following through this process that it becomes as safe as possible, because along with concussion, obviously, once paralysis is involved, it's every parent's nightmare, and that's, we all have a lot of the parents have young children and they love the game, but that's every parent's nightmare, and it's my parent, or it's my it would be a nightmare for any of us. So you just can't. You have to. There are risks in everything, but I think the more we show images or clips to younger players, the more educated they'll become. Hence, their decision making will become better.
Okay. Well, listen, we'll pick that up at another stage, I'm sure. So you have Montpellier on Sunday, and then hopefully a busy 2021, a very different 2021 to this year for all of us. Please God, would be nice. In the meantime, it's great you have your family there. Enjoy it. Have a nice couple of days. Put the feet up, relax, and thanks a million.
Come on, Joe. Thank you. Great to chat. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Likewise,
Thank you.
likewise. Ronan O'Gara there at Goodison Park, by the way. Everton 0, Manchester United 0, 33 minutes on the clock.
Wednesday night rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
News Talk already gives you your daily fix of news and entertainment. But wouldn't you like a little bit more? News Talk Extra is everything you might have missed, plus expert tips, podcasts and competitions. All straight to your inbox. Subscribe now at newstalk.com/extra.
Bet smart this season with stat betting on the Boyle Sports app. For the first time ever, bet on shots, shots on target, tackles, passes, assists and more, all powered by Opta. Why not check out the hottest action on the biggest game of the week right now on the Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Need help? Contact gamblingcare.ie. 18+.
Christmas mega sale now on at Curry's PC World. Get your kitchen ready for the big day with our premium range of kitchen appliances from brands like Samsung, Grundig and LG. Get the latest tech with great deals on headphones and tablets. And pick up the perfect gift with savings on gaming, smartwatches and more. Get in store or online at currys.ie.